You've probably got one of the least popular jobs in the trades.
I would say I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know it may not be the most desirable. We're kind of like on the lower rung of things, but I'm hoping to change that.
But you do pretty well at it.
I do pretty well. I know a lot of people in the industry do well, and it's kind of we feel like it's the greatest joke of all time, of what we're doing. People look at us and don't really see the future we can build or have built with this career. It's really fascinating to me. I never would have thought of it. I didn't even know the career existed when I was in school. So I love it, honestly.
Yeah, and I love hearing that, because I had a guy that worked with me in the union, and we were working out at the airport, and he says, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. He said, what would you think if I told you I was going to get out of the union and open a business doing porta-johnies? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'd be like, what makes you want to get into that business? And is that something you want to do? Or, I mean, tell me more about it. And he said there are, at the time, 5, maybe 7 porta-johny company owners in this area. And he says, Roger, every one of them are millionaires. He said, there's so much money to be made in that. And I'm like, man, that is crazy. Now, me being a plumber, we're not allowed to touch septic systems. We can plumb right up to it. We can drain into it. But from that point on, it has nothing to do with us. But you help people take care of their septic systems.
Yes, we do. So I feel like it's a good relationship for septic and plumbers. I feel like it's good that they get on the same page, kind of like you were talking about. The plumbers, they deal all the way up to the septic underneath the house. We deal with the septic side of things. There's been a lot of instances where a customer will have a clog, and the first thing they do, they call a plumber out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they'll go open up the septic tank, and they'll tell the customer it's full and needs to be pumped out. Well, the problem with that is the septic tank's always going to be full.
Always full. Unless you just pumped it out, it's going to be full.
Unless we just pumped it out. And a lot of people don't realize that, especially homeowners. We've had a couple calls in the past where we would pump out a septic system, and then we get a call back in a few days. Hey, it's already filled back up. It's going to fill up.
You bet.
As you're using water in the home, it's going to enter the septic tank. The way they work, it's pretty much like a holding tank. So water enters the septic tank and it exits out into the drain field. So it has to be pretty much to the top for it to operate the way it should. Now, if it's overflowing, that's a different situation. You got a failing drain field, something like that. And then if you got a clog underneath the house, that's where the plumbers come in. So thankfully now we have pretty good relationships with the plumbers in our area. If they, the first thing they'll ask the customer is, are you on septic? And I feel like that's the question of whether you need someone out there that pumps out septic tanks, works on septic systems, or plumber. First question, are you on septic?
Okay.
Well, call a septic guy out there. If septic guy gets over there and diagnoses the situation that it needs a plumber, then the plumber comes in, gets things taken care of.
No, and it's a great deal because, here in the Dallas area, now the further out I am, I've never had a house or anything on septic till I bought this property.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got 4 septic systems.
Right.
Have no idea if they were ever taken care of, have no idea how they were installed, have no idea where the drain fields are, the leach fields, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I know where the septic tanks are. Not a great way to walk into a system like that, because even the person before me, he's like, look, I didn't install it. I don't know anything about it. So new people to septic systems, what do you tell them?
So, so the way you explained it to me, that's pretty much the situation we run into every single day. We've got people that are moving out to the country from the city. They've never been on a septic system their whole life. And it wasn't really up until 1985 where the state of Texas actually kept documented records of the installations. So before that, it's just a shot in the dark, That's where we come in, find the septic systems. But I will say, if you're a new home buyer and you buy some property, have the septic systems inspected. What they'll do, they'll find the system, locate it, make sure everything's working.
Right.
But I know during the housing boom, people were just buying property sight unseen, waiving the inspections. And actually, we've been seeing kind of the tail end of that. And what's happening is you have these people that spend a lot of money to get into these homes, you know, and they give us a call in the middle of the night. Hey, the toilet won't flush. It's overflowing. Well, we show up, and it's never a pleasant It's never a pleasant situation having to tell that homeowner that they just bought a property with a failed septic system.
Man, that's tough. Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. First of all, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So my name's Dominic. I pump out septic systems here in the hill country of Texas.
Okay, what's the name of the company?
So the company is Juices Septic and Grease.
I love that.
It's kind of funny how that ended up. My dad's nickname is Juice. He got it. He got the nickname in high school. Kind of carried over.
That's funny.
So everybody just knows him as Juice. And then it is the greatest marketing campaign ever because we're rolling around in a truck carrying literal
pump juice.
Literal juice. Exactly. So it's hard to forget that. And we've gotten so many calls. I saw your truck rolling around, and I just thought it was the funniest thing.
That is so good.
So I think it was unintentional marketing, but it works.
And you're into social media?
Yes, sir. So
how do people find you there?
So it's Poor Pumper Society on all platforms.
You know, that's a very unique name. First time I saw that, I'm like, man, that is good branding. That is good.
You know, kind of what I was talking about, kind of the greatest joke ever. A lot of us in the industry, we kind of joke about like eating ramen noodles every night and stuff like that. It's just a joke because we're all doing pretty well in the industry, I would say. So we just kind of joke around with each other, kind of teasing, you know, like this is our little secret thing, you know, that we're doing. So that's where Poor Pumper Society came, because it's like it's our thing.
Absolutely, no, it is. It's a great thing, you know. And I go back to the guy who came to me and said, I want to do the Porta Johnies. He's like, Roger, it doesn't take a lot of work to get busy and make good money doing this. And, you know, how many septic tanks do you think are in the area that you serve?
So in our area, I would say in our county and the surrounding county, there is about 20,000. And then that is just going up and up every year. I go to the TOA show. That's where I renew my installer's license, and they have a chart of the state of Texas. So from 2022 to 2023, there was about 1 million new septic systems put in across the state of Texas. And that's just growing. The more and more homes are being built. And a lot of places people wouldn't suspect, actually in the Austin area, it's growing so fast that the wastewater facilities can't even keep up. So all the new homes being built are on septic systems. And these septic systems in particular, they're advanced treatment units. So it is basically a mini wastewater treatment plant in their backyard.
Yeah.
And those have to be maintained. They have somebody that comes out and inspects those. So that in itself is an industry, going out there and maintaining and inspecting those systems.
And so you tell kids, look, when a sprinkler system's going off in Austin, don't go play in it.
Don't go playing in the sprinklers.
It's not going to be what you think it is.
No, and they, like I said, they are in a lot of areas you would not expect. I mean, these are $2 million homes, lakefront properties. They've got infinity pools, and they've got
a septic system.
They've got 2,000 gallons of poop in their backyard.
That is crazy. That's crazy. So this video is sponsored by Leak Pro. Go check out leak-pro.com. You said that you didn't even know about this in high school.
No, I did not.
How'd you get into this?
So my dad, he was working at Kohler for the longest time, and he pretty much sacrificed his body. And when it came down to it, they just kind of let him go. So he went and he took the initiative and bought his first pump truck. So the crazy thing is, he was actually working full time, and he was renting a tow behind vacuum trailer. So he would go work all day, and he'd actually tow it to work. So the vacuum trailer's in the parking lot with his pickup.
Yeah.
He'd clock out and go do a job on the way home. So That's how he started, and it's just been up and up since then. So it was his willingness to try something that he had faith in, but a lot of people didn't have faith in and didn't even understand. You tell somebody that you're gonna go out and pump out septic tanks, they look at you like you're crazy.
Oh yeah, and it's not just the pumping them out. And I never understood this, why they don't make the access come all the way up to the ground level. Mm-hmm. Put a lid on it like a manhole cover or something, and the lids are almost always buried. Am I right? Almost always.
A lot of these older systems here in the state of Texas, and you can just read through any of my comments, wink, wink, there will be someone in there saying that septic systems never need to be pumped out. So for the longest time, they'd bury it, forget it until it starts backing up, and then that's where we come in. So we're running into all these neglected septic tanks. They've been put in since the 80s, early 90s. It's actually now code in the state of Texas that new installations have to have risers. So those are those access ports 2 inches above grade. So any new installation we don't have to worry about, but all these older systems, those are the ones where we're having to show up and locate, dig up all the lids.
So my question, because I always look for opportunity, why not always carry risers with you?
Exactly.
In your truck, and say, look, we're going to have to dig these up this time, but anytime we dig them up, we'll install a set of risers for $500. You'll never have to dig them up again. And it may be $1,000, but look at what your risers are going to cost. Look at what it's going to cost you to spend the time to dig it, and say, look, we can come back and charge you this every time. We got to come back and dig them back up.
Exactly.
Or we can go ahead and sell you risers now. Now, are they like steel risers where you put the ram neck on the tank and seal it off, or how are they nowadays?
They vary. The most common one we see is a hard plastic. There's a couple manufacturers that make those. There's actually some too that are a corrugated pipe, and then they'll mold a concrete lid to the top. And the thing I will say, kind of what you're mentioning on those risers, I mean, that in and of itself, we found that when we first got into it, it was just strictly pumping. And then as we progressed, more opportunities came up. Okay, locating, installing risers. Now I've got my installer's license, so it's installation and repair. It's just, I feel like the opportunities are endless in this industry. I mean, you start out on one thing thinking that's all you're going to do, and just opportunity presents itself, and people should jump on it.
Now, you said you've got your installer's license. You mean installing risers or installing the whole systems?
Installing septic systems.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Risers are actually pretty easy to install. It's mainly the digging and locating of the lids. We have several jobs we show up to. The homeowner has no idea where it's at. Kind of what you're explaining in your situation. The previous owner, they never had it pumped out either. They don't know where it's at. So we break it down to the customer. Look, it's going to be this much for us to come out, locate, dig up the tank. If you want risers, we can go ahead and bring those over, install them. It's going to be this amount. And it's beneficial for you in the long run. You're going to know exactly where the septic system's at. You're going to have access to it. And the biggest thing I will say is that you're able to actually inspect it yourself, take a look at it. It's pretty easy just by taking a look at it just taking a look at it yourself, whether or not it needs pump or whether you're going to have issues in the future.
You say it's pretty easy to look at, but I watch you pull lids and then reach in there and stir it all up. Why are you laughing when I say that? It's like you got this huge shake machine.
Oh, yeah. Your poop smoothie maker.
The poop smoothie maker. There you go.
So that's a crust buster. So kind of what I was mentioning with the neglected septic tanks, the way these septic tanks work, as it's being used, everything separates. So you've got fats, oils, grease, or fog.
Fog, you bet.
And paper that floats up top. It makes a crust, as we call it. It's technically called the scum layer, but crust sounds cooler. And then you've got the effluent, which is dirty water in between. And then you've got the sludge at the bottom. That's the broken down organic waste.
You bet.
Poop, exactly, yep. So as that separates out, the effluent or the dirty water is what is supposed to go out to your drain field. And now a drain field is perforated pipe, usually in gravel. Now they've got leaching chambers. So the soil is actually doing the treatment of the wastewater. Now, if you neglect your septic system, all that builds up, and it's, instead of effluent going out into your drain field,
you got poop going.
Now you're throwing sludge,
you bet,
all that, and it causes drain field failure. So a lot of these people, they've been getting by. They said, "Oh, it never needs to be pumped out. It's been doing fine since the 90s." My granddad said, "You throw a dead chicken in there, you never have to get it pumped out." But they face that hard reality when they get hit with that bill for the new install.
So once somebody ruins their drain field, can that be recouped or anything, or no?
A lot of it depends on how much land you're on. We have some small acreages where they won't permit a conventional drain field, and it just goes straight to an advanced treatment unit, an aerobic septic system.
Is it hard to convert one from an old system to a new system?
So the ATUs, the advanced treatment units, they're kind of like an all-in-one. So you dig the hole for it, and everything, it's self-contained. It's one tank, but it's split up into different chambers. So the first part is basically a septic tank.
Right.
And then you've got the middle part, which is the aeration chamber, and that stirs everything up, gets aerobic bacteria growing, and that is going to break down the organic waste fast. It's pretty much what happens at a wastewater treatment plant where all the sewers end up, but on a much smaller scale. So if your old septic system fails, it's pretty much just cave it in and drop in that new ATU. If you do have enough land, most of the time these older septic tanks themselves, they're decomposing. The concrete over time gets real brittle from the gases that build up inside the tank. So it becomes a safety hazard as well if that thing collapses and you've got a child or an animal that falls into that. So most times we opt for just getting a full tank and drain field replacement.
Ballpark idea, what's it cost somebody? Or does it depend on the size?
It depends on the size. They base it on the bedrooms here in Texas. So if you're looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath, you're probably getting a 1,000-gallon septic system. I believe 750 is the bare minimum now they're putting in. But you have some of these older systems we run into. It's a 300-gallon tank. And in my mind is just blown on how that was able to last so long.
Right. They can fill that up in a day.
Well, what happens is you come to realize a bunch of these tanks, they're not how they were. They're not how they're built today. They're actually cesspits, so it's a bottomless tank. So as water's being used, it's not going. A majority of it isn't going out to the drain field. It's actually seeping down through the soil, which isn't the best. They're outlawed now because you think about it, all that has to go somewhere. Where does it go?
Oh yeah,
your well water
ends up in our drinking water. You bet. Now, luckily, I don't have a well here, so,
okay.
Yeah, we're on city water. But now this is interesting though. Your dad, I don't know, did you come to your dad, or did your dad come to you and say, "Hey, you want to go to work with me?"
So I was sitting in an office behind 3 computer screens, and my dad had just got his truck. He had quit his job.
How long did it take him from the time he started renting to the time he could quit his job and say, I'm full time now?
It took about 2 years.
Okay.
So he was doing that part time, and then he just went all in. And I feel like that's what you got to do. If you believe in something hard enough, it's going to happen. So he did that. He started growing at a very rapid pace because a lot of these rural areas, kind of like where we're at, they have no one. So they're having to get somebody from 2.5 hours away to come out there. And of course, I mean, you tack on diesel fees, things like that. It get pretty expensive. So when he grew, he gave me a call. He said, "Hey, if you want it, you could come on." And I was getting kind of fed up with my job at that point. I mean, you think about it when you're in high school. I just want to be in the AC all day. I mean, I hauled hay, mowed as a kid, and I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I don't know. It's a beautiful thing now that I think about it, because it kind of went full circle. Kind of experienced both things, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I said yes, I went, and just been having a blast ever since. And seeing the growth of him, his company. Now it's me and my brother out there run the trucks as well. It's just so cool to see, and I'm proud to be working with my family.
And that's a cool deal. You met Squirt a while ago. He works with me, and it's a neat thing. You had seen your dad do it. Mm-hmm. When your dad first told you, "Look, I'm getting into septic systems. I'm going out to pump poop all day, every day." You're sitting in your AC office looking at 3 computer screens. You got to be thinking, man, how would anybody ever want to do that? Yeah or no?
I was, and I had to think about it for a second, but I had been doing it. I would go over on the weekends actually and help him out, and I just saw the opportunity. Talking to a lot of people in the industry, I mean, I never really saw it in our area, and now that I pump out septic systems, I see pump trucks everywhere.
Yeah.
I see them in my sleep. The demand is there. People aren't going to stop using the restroom anytime soon. It's a very kind of niche thing that we found ourselves in.
And y'all got 2 trucks. So, I mean, you're doing good. Exactly what part of Texas are you in? Where are you located?
So we're out of San Saba, Texas. It's right in the middle of Texas. So very rural area. It's a lot of land, a lot of open land, ranches, things like that.
That means wells and septic systems,
Of course.
because there's not city water ran out. Everybody thinks, when you drive down the road, there's a water line running out here somewhere. If I wanted to build a house here, I just tie them
Right.
to the water, tie them to the sewer, tie them to the gas. And that's normally not the way it is out in the country.
No, it's not. And a lot of people have that misconception. In my videos, they'll talk about, why didn't they just hook up to the sewer? A lot of people from different countries, they'll comment like, the U.S. doesn't have sewers, and we do have sewers in the towns, cities, things like that. But once you go out into this country, I mean, we're dealing with a ranch that's 500 acres. I mean, it's sitting about 7 miles from the nearest sewer connection. Just the cost of running PVC.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have lift stations in between that, people maintaining those lift stations.
35,000 feet of pipe, a backhoe to dig all that dirt,
Exactly.
and lift stations, and
a lot of it isn't flat land. I mean, you're going through rock, you're going through a lot of things. So it's not that easy. Just the cost. I mean, if you wanted to, I mean, I'm sure it could be done, but it's just much more efficient to have your own on-site sewage facility. And that's what all these rural properties have.
So smart. So you mentioned a while ago about caving one in and then building a new one, an aerobic system, advanced treatment system.
Right.
What do those run ballpark?
So those, they're starting out about 14 to 15,000 in our area. Those do have to have a maintenance contract, which is why I tell people, if you have a conventional septic system, the state of Texas recommends getting it pumped out between 2 to 5 years. And that all depends on how many people are in the home, how much water is being used, what's being flushed down. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. But if you have one of those traditional pipe and gravel septic tanks, if you treat it right, it should last you a really long time. But when it fails, when it fails, a lot of these counties, they're just going straight to those advanced treatment units. So you're having to drop $14,000, and I mean that's kind of on the lighter end on some places. You run into if you hit a rock bed, so you're spending a whole day just hammering to get that septic tank in there. I mean that drives up the cost.
Yeah,
of course. So yeah, they're getting up there, and then you have to sign on for that quarterly inspection, which a lot of people don't like. But I get it. It's just an added cost on things, but when you could potentially have wastewater spraying out through sprinklers, it's really important you get that inspected and make sure everything's working properly.
The good thing is when you're the installer, chances are you're doing the inspections too.
Of course.
How long does it take you to do the inspection?
When you show up, you open up the lids, you take sludge samples, make sure everything's working. So, I mean, you can be in and out in less than 15 minutes. You just got to make sure you document everything, get all the paperwork sorted out.
You make good money to do that too.
Exactly. So that in and of itself is an industry. I mean, there's so many different facets, and it's a really great opportunity. And people that are in the septic industry, I will say, just keep pushing, keep moving forward, get new licenses, keep progressing. Technology is changing so fast in our industry. We're actually getting to the point now to where instead of it just being sprayed out in your yard used for irrigation purposes, they're actually talking about getting the wastewater treated and then potentially being reused as gray water in the home, which would be used to flush your toilet. So
you bet
it's going to come full circle at some point, and we need to be ready for it.
No, and I think that's a great thing. One of my licenses is a WSPS. I legally can do rainwater collecting, gray water systems like that. So I've often thought this is going to be great for plumbers because they're going to be able to plumb a house one way, then come in and plumb it another way for gray water reuse, but also gray water reclamation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take the water out of the lavatory, out of the shower, things like that, and treat it and clean it and reuse it to flush toilets or do things, even irrigation. I was thinking more drip irrigation instead of spray irrigation. But, one thing that I see from looking at what you do and the posts you make and things like that, you always try to do the things the right way.
Of course.
And, we talked at breakfast. We had dinner last night, breakfast this morning. And what we talked about, same problem we deal with plumbers. There's a lot of people that don't do things the right way.
Right.
What made you the kind of person you're like, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to do it right every time I walk in there. What is it that drives you to be good?
You know, it's what my dad built. So every time I'm going out there, it's a reflection on him. It's a reflection on me. And I always think about the person, their septic system. I think of it like, what if it was my grandma? What if it was my dad? You know, so I always want to do right by them. I want to keep our name good, especially just starting out. I mean, we're not even that old of a company. About 7 years, 5 full-time when my dad went. So I just always want to do right by people, and that's just been instilled in me since I was a kid. So it's worked out. A lot of people trust us and really rely on us. They don't know how these septic systems work. I could tell them that it needs to be pumped out every month, and they'd believe me, because why not? They don't know anything about it.
All right, it's full again.
So I feel like a key part is educating the customer, what they have, how it works, what's causing the problems, what to look for, and things like that. And it works out really well. It builds trust between us and the customer.
And if I'm not mistaken, it takes 5 years from the time you get started in the industry to the time you can get your Class 2 license or something like that?
So the installer one is your first license you need to get for installations. So you have to put 3 systems in the ground within a year, and then after that you can take your level 2, which is for the advanced treatment units, and then you just keep going on to be a maintenance provider, things like that, make sure those ATUs are working well.
So what's the fastest it could take someone to get in? And you had to put in time because you did a Class 1 first,
right?
Some different things. How long does it take you, since you did things the legal way, the right way? You got your Class 1, you registered, you did your stuff. Now you've got to wait so long to do your Class 2, right?
Yes. So actually, that's going to be in October where I can do that. So I had to wait a year, put 3 in the ground minimum. You know, that'd be the fastest rate. About 2 years, you can get it done. It's just getting the equipment, getting the experience, and just making sure you do things right.
What is it that a lot of companies either scam people with, or what shortcuts are they doing that if more people knew about it, they'd be like, hey, wait, why didn't you do this? Or
So this is going to be a controversial one.
Okay.
So a lot of people think you need to seed the septic system, which is leave a foot of sludge or so in the bottom of the tank to get it restarted. And that's just not true.
It starts when it's brand new with anything.
It starts brand new, and that's how I explain to people. When they put in a new system, are they coming in there and dropping a foot of sludge? No. As soon as you use the restroom,
that starts building up.
The process. And another one is rinsing down the tank. So when I pump out a septic tank, you'll see in my videos, I rinse it down with the water hose where you can see the concrete. And it doesn't have to be so clean you can eat off it, but clean enough. I take a picture for the customer, make sure we're doing things right. Another thing is you'll have somebody, if the customer's not there, they'll just drop the hose in and pump what they can and just leave a huge mess. I mean, the main point of pumping out your septic system is getting that sludge out of the tank. So if you're leaving behind 2 or 3 foot of sludge, you're doing the customer a disservice.
If you're enjoying the Trade Talks, hit that subscribe or follow button, which helps us produce this awesome blue-collar content absolutely free. And now, back to the episode. Have you ever gone in and followed up other companies and realized, hey, they didn't either do what they were paid to do, or they didn't do it right, or, hey, they just didn't do anything at all?
We ran into that a couple times. One of the biggest things we deal with is grease traps. Those are on a more frequent basis. Some of them we're doing every month. Some of them we're doing every 2 months. So we have a cycle of those grease traps. And a lot of these customers, new customers we get, they were having problems where the previous company would just go in there, drop a hose, and grease is very particular to where it will build up and cause clogs. It'll plug up, go out to the city sewer, make a huge mess. And these restaurants, I mean, they can't afford to shut down and have somebody come in. So we've got a lot of them off that, just following up, and they look terrible. You know, it's like, was this ever pumped out? And you start thinking about it. I mean, a lot of these people, they're doing a run, getting as many as they can, and then before they go to dump. So they're probably just trying to get things done as fast as possible. And we really, really take our time, make sure we do things right, get everything clean, make sure we have proof. We don't ever want our customers second guessing that we did a good job. We know we do, but that's just icing on the cake, is having those pictures to follow up with them.
I saw a grease trap that you did. I think it was on your Instagram page. And man, when you finished, I looked at it, I'm like, man, that looks like brand new because I've installed them.
Right.
And on the inside, it's like, look, that looks brand new. I'm assuming you rinse those down too.
We rinse
like
those
you did
down
the
as
grease
well.
traps.
Yes, sir.
Or just the septic system. Do most people go that thorough, that detailed?
A lot of people don't. People will argue back and forth that it doesn't need it. It's just going to fill right back up. But like I said, the customer is paying for that. They're paying to have that thing pumped out properly. So that's what we're there to do.
Number one of the reasons I started my business, I worked for a big commercial company, and they found out what kind of profit margins you can make in residential. So they're like, hey, we're going to start doing residential service. Cool. And I was the director of operations over construction. So I had a meeting one day and said, hey, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna specialize in customer service, and we're gonna have the best trained plumbers. I'm like, man, I love that. So what are y'all gonna do to train your plumbers? And the lady looks at me, she says, what do you mean? So you're gonna tell people you got the best trained plumbers, how are you gonna train them? And she says, well, Roger, every one of our plumbers have a license. They're trained. And I'm like, so's every other plumber in Texas. And I said, so what are you going to do about the customer service? She kind of rolls her eyes. She says, we'll make sure our plumbers know how to say please and thank you and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And I thought, man, if that's all you're doing, and that's where I realized I was at the wrong company.
Right.
I was at one of those BS companies that they can just write BS on the side of their vans because that's what they're out telling people. And I always said when I open a company, I want to be honest with people. I do want to train my plumbers. I want to make sure they understand what we're doing better than most other companies. And, we want to wear floor savers. We want to, if we go in people's houses, we want to treat their house like it's their castle, because to them it is. And it blew my mind whenever I got into this business, what kind of scammy things a lot of other plumbing companies were doing. And they've got BS written on everything they do.
Exactly.
And I mean, I hate to say it that way, but we got a call one day, and I talked about this the other day, and I guess that's why I'm thinking about it. This lady calls, and she said, look, she said, I've got a warranty company. She said, and I had them come out and look at my HVAC system because it's not heating up. And the guy walks up in the attic and says, man, I hate to say this, I smell gas. Call the warranty company, have them send a plumber out. That's got to be fixed before I can do anything. So she calls the plumber, and the plumber comes out and says, this young kid walks up and comes to the front door, and she says, look, I got gas leaks up in my attic. I need help. And he says, okay, he says, give me a few minutes outside. I'm going to check some stuff, and then I'll come inside. So he's out there for about 5 minutes, comes back, knocks on the door, says, you've got a leak in your main underground between the meter and the house. It's going to be $10,000 to get that fixed. And he's, handing her a paper saying, here, I need you to sign it. She's like, I need time to think about this. I can't sign that. And so I said, well, you got to sign it or I can't leave. She's like, you know what? You're going to have to leave because I'm not signing. And when she called us, she calls and she says, look, she said, I was crying and I was cussing. And then I turned on the computer. She said, I was crying and I was cussing. Then I started praying and I turned on the computer. And she said, and y'all came up. So I sent a plumber out there. And he tests things. And he finds 3 leaks up in her attic. Fixes all of them in just a couple hours. Tests everything again, including the yard service. Everything holds. It was under $1,000. How can you walk out and tell somebody, hey, you need to give me $10,000, knowing there's nothing wrong? And that just blows my mind.
That's crazy.
But I see it all the time. And apparently it happens in the septic systems too.
It does. A lot of homeowners, they just do not understand how septic systems work. So they believe myths, they'll believe what people tell them, and then you have some people that prey on that. Unfortunately, I'm sure it's the same in every industry. You got people like that, but I just want them to understand what they have, what they can do to prevent certain things from happening, clogs, things like that. It's just unfortunate when things like that do happen, especially if I'm following up behind it. It drives me insane. So I just want to set things straight and make sure that customer is able to use the restroom, because inevitably that's the main goal, is you want that wastewater stored and the homeowner to be able to use water. When those septic systems fail or they get clogged up, you have a whole household that can't use water. Some of these people, they've got infants, they've got elderly people in the home. I mean, if you can't shower, use the water without having a swamp in your backyard, I mean, it's just not good.
Not at all. What would you tell somebody wanting to get in to a career like that? What are the 3 most important things they need to know?
I would say that you need to set your expectations of what you want to do and where you want to be in the industry. There are so many opportunities, whether you just get into pumping, you get into the installer side. There's certain people that just strictly do installations, repairs. There's certain people that just do pumping. I will say that once you get into one, it's inevitable you're going to at least be involved in some faction of the other, because if you're pumping out a septic system, you have to understand how it works. If you want to understand how it works, you need to know how to put them in. So it's kind of like you should be able to do both at certain points. I will say too, a great attitude goes a long way
in every trade,
in everything. So you go into it, you're smiling, people will see that, and they will respond. There's so many times I show up to a customer's house and they've been just having a nightmare situation. Their system's clogged up, overflowing, something like that. So I feel like we're the superheroes showing up and solving their problems. And a lot of people don't look at you that way in society.
And they don't.
And I will say that anyone wanting to get into the industry, you're helping the environment, you're helping your community. So be proud of that, and just know that the possibilities are endless.
And you talked about that about the way society looks at us, and they look at plumbers the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me a story last night about your dad was out working on a septic system or grease trap at a school,
mm-hmm.
and the teacher came walking by with kids.
It was crazy. So they had a lift station that was down. The pumps were on back order, so my dad was going to be out there. I believe it was 2 weeks until they were able to get that. So he's out there every day in his pump truck, just making sure it doesn't overflow, because you would have wastewater overflowing near school kids.
You bet.
So my dad is out there. He has all his hoses dragged out, and this teacher walks by with some kids and points at my dad and says, "See, that's why you need to stay in school, or else you're going to end up doing that." And I mean, my dad overheard it, and I mean, he's a pretty tough guy, but when you hear that, I mean, it kind of hurts, but he got the last laugh, because I will say my dad in those 2 weeks probably made more than that teacher made in half a year.
And yeah, I told you the story last night too about me going to career days, and when the counselors came up at the end telling them what kind of money the kids could make, not just starting out, but in 5 years, because I was there with the union. And these 3 guidance counselors were literally looking at each other like, I don't make that much money. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have gone to college. Maybe you should have gotten the trades.
Right.
Because there's women in the trades. Do you know any women pump truckers?
I do. So thankfully the women in our family, they're not afraid. So my girlfriend, she actually helps me film a lot. So she's out there. I'm blending up the septic tanks, digging, and she's out there with me. She's not afraid to get dirty. And I think that's another misconception, is people just think it's like stinks to all get out. And if your septic system is working properly, you've got the bacteria and the enzymes in it working the way they should, it really doesn't smell. It maybe smells like gray water.
Right.
So I have homeowners now that my videos are kind of taken off. They actually call us because it was kind of on the back burner. They didn't think anything of their septic system.
But now I smell it.
Well, yeah, exactly. So they'll start thinking, okay, it's been 7 years I've lived here, haven't done anything, don't know anything about it, so maybe I should get something done. So they're curious. And I don't mind. It's actually beneficial if the customer is there and I can explain to them, they can see and just learn about their system. But no, it doesn't stink that bad. And no, I do know a lot of women pumpers. I believe there's actually a couple of women-only porta potty drivers. I can't think of the company name, but they're awesome. They got a full team of women out there servicing porta potties. They're lifting them up. I mean, those things aren't light, and they're hauling them around, getting them out. There's a couple of women that run their own pump truck. They go out there, they're digging, they're locating, they're doing inspections. It's really cool to see. You don't see it that often, but I will say in our industry, a lot of it is family oriented. So if you got your dad or your grandpa or whoever started the company, eventually it will get passed down or bought out. So you got a lot of family members that are taking over the reins, and some of them are women, so they'll take it over and keep moving it forward. And you even have some that are just starting up on their own. So I will say that the women shouldn't be afraid to get into the industry. We're very welcoming, and it's just really cool to see.
And it's that way too. I mean, I've met you at conferences, so we attend some of the same conferences because plumbing and septic systems they go together.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of women plumbers there that hey, this is what I do each and every day. So it's neat to see. And I'm kind of like you. It's like, number one, they can use a shovel.
Right.
It's not like you're digging a 6-foot deep hole normally. The septic lid's down there somewhere. But you've also got some cool tools. A flushable locator. And you just flush them down the toilet, or you go up on the roof and drop them in a vent?
So I will say when we first started out, it was very basic. We were just getting into it. We're learning ourselves as we went. So we would just use a soil probe. And the way that works, that's the oldest method of finding a septic tank.
Plumbers have them too, so I've done that.
You just
forever.
probe around and you feel that echo of that hollow box in the ground. It's either concrete, fiberglass, or plastic, so you're going to feel something. We got to the point to where there's some of these systems that were put in, they're buried 4 feet, 6 feet down. So, I mean, you could be out there probing.
You bet.
And we'll never find it. You're never going to hit it. And a lot of the soil in our area is rocky too, so you're just hitting rocks everywhere. So that flushable transmitter, what we do, if the line isn't clogged, you go in there, turn it on, and it starts emitting a signal, flush it down the toilet. Where's it going to end up? In the septic tank.
You bet.
So then we follow it up with our locator, pick up the signal, and it's right on the lid. So it's quick, efficient. You get straight to the septic tank lid. It saves you time, and it saves the customer time. And it also saves them from looking like a army of armadillos just dug up the entire
whole yard. Yes. And I've done that before. You don't reuse those. Or have you ever, you've been able to pull them back out and reuse them?
I kind of joke. Everybody watches those videos and they're like, there's no way you reuse those, right? And I believe they have about a 4-hour battery life, so I'm getting my money's worth out of them.
I got 3 more to go find. I'll come back later.
Exactly.
That's pretty good. And those things, they're not cheap.
No. Well, I mean, they kind of are.
Well, yeah, but they didn't used to be. I remember when it first came out, it was like, wait, you want me to flush that much money down the toilet? It's like, well,
right.
Think of what all that's going to save you, and it's true.
Right.
What do they run now?
So you can get a 3-pack for about $140 direct from their website. I will say
it's almost $50 a piece, but if it saves you 3 hours of digging or probing,
exactly.
No,
they pay for themselves almost instantly. We usually charge a flat rate to locate. We show up, and then it's based off the depth. So if it's over about 2 feet, we'll bring in the excavator to dig it up. And then, of course, when they get hit with that charge, they're like, okay, install risers. I don't want to do this again.
Absolutely.
So it helps a ton, too, because if you're just mindlessly out there digging, you get to where it's 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet. When do you give up?
You even over it's like, well, I'm already this deep. I just got to keep going.
Right. So I will say to people in the industry, if you're just starting out, just invest in good equipment. I will say any piece of equipment we've invested in, we wish we would have got it at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking for things that make my life easier. I do this every day. I'm sure you do too. So
every single day. Yes.
Anything you can find that makes your job easier, makes you look more professional, I will say invest in it. Just don't even think about it. Do it.
Now, you also use sewer cameras.
Yes.
When do you decide between a sewer camera and a flushable locator? Because my thought is, if you can get up on a roof and run a camera down, you're going to be able to reuse that every single time.
Right.
But why use a flushable locator instead of a camera sometimes?
So we really don't want to get on the roofs. I
don't blame you. I got plumbers that hated getting on the roofs.
So we're out there in a pump truck. So I'm pretty much trying to keep as much equipment in my truck as I can, but still have enough room to sit in the truck. I mean, it's only a 2-seater. I mean, it's a small cab, so I have just enough room to fit my sewer camera, my cooler for water, and my locator. The tray is full of hoses, things like that. So I believe if we have a visible clean out outside, we'll pop that open, run the sewer camera down. If there's not one, we'll flush that transmitter. If it gets to the point where we do need to get on a roof, we'll schedule that just for a locate. So we'll have the service truck come out with the ladder and locate it like that.
Cool deal. Your dad started this business 5 years ago. 7 years ago.
7 years.
Full-time 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been doing it now?
I'm right around there too.
So you pretty much came over right after he got started.
Right as soon as he started, it was just instant. I mean, his phone was blowing up, and he gave me the call to arms. Come on, let's make some money together.
Did your brother start about the same time too?
So he actually was working at a casino, and that shut down when COVID hit. So he was just sitting at the house, and he actually moved back down, started with us too, and he's been doing it and loved it. So it's been really cool to see.
Where's Dominic in 5 years?
Where am I in 5 years? I've been talking to myself about that. There's a part of me that I really love being out there, just getting. I'm in the I'm in the pit. You know, I'm out there digging. I'm out there doing my content, pumping. But I would like to get to the point to where I kind of slow things down, take more of like a executive position, not having to spend so many hours out in the truck. Just maybe go out there in 1 or 2 and train people up to do the same thing I do.
Yeah, it's neat because my first coach was Michael Gerber, and he teaches about you're in the field, you're the technician, you're busy doing it. Then you become the manager, and you become the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, there's a lot of us in the position I was in at the time. I'm trying to be all three.
Right.
Trying to be the entrepreneur, trying to be the technician in the field, making sure everything's happening. Trying to be the manager to make sure stuff got ordered and billing got done and money got collected and deposited and all the good and bad and yada, yada, yada. And then I'm trying to be the owner, out trying to make the phone ring and grow and do different things. It's hard to do it all. And, I love that you're like, look, I'm in the field now, but I need to find a way or want to find a way to eventually move up and do this part of it. Social media has been good for you.
It's been really good. It's surprised me. So, and I'm honestly surprised there's so many people that enjoy watching what I do, but it makes me happy. And I feel like it's putting a positive light on our industry, which has been, I feel like, lurking in the shadows for the longest time. I mean, I've got several people that send me messages and pictures where they're out pumping a system and somebody they have a child or young person there that's been watching my videos, and they get excited to see the pump truck come out. They're excited to see how it works, whereas before they were just like going,
gross,
you know. So it's really cool to see, and I'm really glad on the positive impact that's made in the industry.
It's neat. And you're mainly on Instagram? It's your biggest Instagram and Facebook now?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We just hit 500,000, so that was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
It's just been insane, and I appreciate everybody that wants to watch them.
Makes it neat, doesn't it?
It does.
No, I think that is so cool. And making content's fun, but it's also a lot of work.
It is, and a lot of people don't see it that way.
Right, you're just out shooting videos.
That's what they think. A lot of people nowadays, they're out in the trades and they're filming what they do, and it's really cool to see how different things get done. But a lot of people don't realize that they're out working all day. They come home. A lot of people, if it's just them, they're editing it themselves. A lot of people don't see that as work, but it really is. And I tell people, when I come back and after it's all said and done, I maybe have 2 hours to myself. It's a lot of work, especially if you want to grow to the point where it becomes, hundreds of thousands. It's a lot of work you got to put in. It's not just point and shoot and it happens. It's a process.
How long does it take you to edit a video nowadays?
I've actually gotten pretty good at it. So I've always It's funny. I would say my my editing started in high school. We got a grant where we all got MacBooks. So we actually had courses in school of how to make PowerPoints, how to edit videos. So that all started in high school. So I've kind of had my foot in the water on that.
Good for you.
So I think the newest thing has been more of the short form content. So that style of editing, everybody has their own style. I've kind of got mine down. Working on different things, but it's just so fast paced. Trends on the internet, a day on the internet is like a week in the real world.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put that right. I will say things move fast on the internet. So if there's a trend on the internet that happened a week ago, it may well have been a month ago in the real world.
It's gone.
It's gone. So you're constantly having to do things in real time. There are situations where I have stored footage and I can reuse that, put it back into my videos. But as far as the trends and things like that, you just got to be so quick with it. I mean, you don't have time to stall. You got to do it then, or you may as well not do it.
And one thing I want to talk about is you don't have a website. Your dad doesn't have a website.
No.
How do people find you?
A lot of it is through word of mouth and surprisingly Facebook. A lot of these neighborhoods, they're in groups and they talk. So if you go out there and you do a good job, they're blasting your page to everyone. Call this guy, call this guy. Every time I show up to a job, the customer just says, we heard nothing but good things about you. We post what we do. We post our work on social media. People see that. They know who I am. They know who my family is. So they get excited when we show up and they know we're going to do a great job. As far as the website, I know that's something that may potentially need to get done.
Only if you want to grow and make more money.
Right. But I will say social media is crazy at this point as to where they're just pushing it out so much. They want you to spend time looking at that. Most people, when they get home at the end of the day or even on their lunch break, what are they doing? They're scrolling. Mm-hmm. They're scrolling somewhere. So if you don't have a presence on that somewhere on their feed, they're not even going to think about it. Yeah, for instance, on Facebook, I mean, I've had people come up to me and they're like, man, it seems like you put so much thought into it, and like how are y'all driving like so much? Because there are people in our area that have websites, and I don't know if a lot of their clients come from that. I guess it would differ on the industries, what you're trying to do. We're probably going to get to that point to where we kind of branch out and we have more divisions besides pumping, so that's where it come into play. Like, but I will say social media right now has been really good for us. And if you're a company starting out, I'll say the first thing to do is start posting somewhere.
Yeah,
start
great advice.
Get a building block and then start working your way up to websites, things like that. I feel like a lot of people just think too much about it. They don't know what to do. I mean, just post a picture of your truck. Our trucks, it's the biggest billboard going down the highway. So
every day. So you take a picture, it's got your information, how they can call you. Just post that. Start out. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And it works.
It works. It sure does.
So tell me about the worst day you've ever had at work.
Oh, man. So this is, it's funny to me, but it may be gross to a lot of people. So this is one of my first days out in the field by myself. So I had my vacuum truck going, and then all of a sudden I lose vacuum. And when that happens, usually there's a clog in the hose. Maybe I vacuumed up too much wipes, things like that. So I start looking at my hoses. I look back at the truck, and I just see a fountain of poop coming out of my truck. We have sight glasses on the back of the trucks to see how full the truck is, and one of the hoses was rubbing up against it, and it actually unscrewed that sight glass. So here's what you're supposed to do in this situation. You're supposed to shut the valve to your hose, and it's going to pull vacuum from that sight glass hole. I didn't do that. I went over, grabbed that sight glass, closed my eyes, and stuck it back in and got covered. The customer, thankfully, was a good sport about it. We're out in the country, so...
Here's your water hose.
He rinsed me off with a water hose, and I rode home in my underwear that day.
Yeah.
My boots and my underwear, so that was...
It's not a picture I want to see. You know, and we all have days like that. I remember one time when I was an apprentice, standing down in a ditch, I'm in raw sewage up to my waist, and bending down, where you're like right here, trying to slide a Fernco gasket or God, what do you call them now? A shear band in place to put two pieces of pipe together where somebody had broken it. Electricians, of course.
Oh.
So anyway, I'm trying to fix it, and it's filled up with sewage, so it's like, okay, this is nasty. But it's all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the best day you've ever had at work.
The best day I've ever had at work, I will say I've had so many good days, it's hard to just pick one. A lot of times when we show up, the customer is in a dire situation. They can't use the restroom, so they're always so appreciative. I mean, we charge what we should to pump out the system, but even then, people give us tips. I mean, I've gotten hundreds. It's always, when somebody tips, they tip big, so it's usually $100. The best ones are where you show up to a ranch, they got fresh eggs, send you home with a sandwich. Probably one of the best things ever. I showed up to this property, and the homeowner was so happy. After I pumped out the system, they cooked me and my dad breakfast, and they would not let us leave until we ate. So we just got done working. We're in there. She's cooking bacon and eggs for all of us, and we're drinking coffee together. And to me, that just makes my day. When somebody is willing to go that extra mile to, feed us, make sure we get a little extra on top of things. So I think that was the best day when we had breakfast after a job.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. My ex-father-in-law, he passed away, but we had referred a plumbing company to them. Him and my mother-in-law, they call us at the end of the first day, and they're like, man, your mom and dad are great. And it's like, well, that's cool. Said literally they made lunch, and then they come get the guys and say, hey, y'all need to go ahead and start washing up for lunch. They're like, well, we're working. It's like, yeah, but you got to take a lunch break. And made them come sit down at the dining room table and and my mother-in-law cooked. Mm-hmm. So it was, you're sitting down, you're going to have a meal for lunch. And then when they're done, it's like, okay, y'all go ahead, go wash up, go back to work, do whatever you do. They're like, well, let us help clean. They're like, no, we got this. And yeah, when the plumbers call you and say, hey, look, we'll go back to your parents' house anytime.
Exactly.
It's a neat deal.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes my day better talking to the customers like that. And a lot of these people, a lot of the elderly folks, they're out there way out in the country. So the only time they see anybody is when they come into town to do something. So they're always wanting to talk.
You bet.
And I'm a talker too. So I get to spend the whole day talking to them. So it's kind of hard saying, hey, I got to go. I got jobs lined up.
Yeah. I got to leave, y'all. I got other people waiting on y'all.
Yeah. They're like, come on, man. Like, come over, we'll stop and have a beer or something. I'm like, first off, I can't drink.
Yeah, I'm not drinking and driving.
Yeah, so. First off. So I appreciate the offer. But man, it's awesome. The people that we deal with, they're awesome people. The country folk, they're honestly the best. You show up to some of these places, they've got a dang Porsche or something in the driveway, and they're just trying to get it for as low as possible.
Oh yeah.
And then,
and not only that, once you in and out, are you done yet?
Right, exactly. And then these people that are out in the country living in a double wide, they're the ones that are making us breakfast, and making sure we're taken care of. So it just kind of shows you. I've had good and bad on both of those sides. But I will say the majority, the people out in the country, they will treat you right.
So what would you recommend to anybody wanting to get into the septic business right now?
So what I'd recommend, first off, is finding out what you need to get to do it. Here in Texas, you need to have a sludge hauler license, first off. You want to get into the installer side of things, go into the installer classes. As far as the pumping side, I actually had somebody talk to me when I was at the wet show. They're like, man, I love your videos because it's basically training for my employees. When I got into it, we're learning as we went. There's not really a guidebook on how to pump out septic tanks, so we're learning as we go. Learning from other people that have been doing it. So I would just say learn, get licensed in what you need to get licensed in, and make sure you do a good job. That's the biggest thing. If you get into anything, whether it be septic pumping installations, make sure you do a good job, and it'll only be up from there.
I love it. How do people find you on social media?
So you can find me on everything, just Poor Pumper Society. On TikTok, it's Poor Pumper Society 2, because TikTok banned my first account.
I think my Roger Wakefield, my name, God, I get banned on Instagram or TikTok. I couldn't, and I had it. And the first post we made, we get a deal said your channel just got banned. And it's like, wait, what'd we do? Didn't do anything.
No, you don't have to do anything, and that's what's crazy to me is I feel like TikTok's kind of taking a more positive change, because it was every week, every video was getting taken down, and I'm like, I'm not explicitly like just, you know.
Oh, no, they're like, but you're showing poop. I get in trouble for showing poop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a plumber, guys. That's what it is.
Right? That's what it is. If you want to get down to it, it's part of humanity. I mean,
it is.
It's
the food that goes in got to come out somewhere.
Exactly. And the good thing kind of with septic tanks is when it's in there, it looks like mud, honestly.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's when I'm emptying my truck, that's the real showstopper, because I just open up that valve and it's just chocolate waterfall.
You bet. Juices.
Yeah.
Juices.
And the funny thing is our treatment plant is actually right next to the golf course. So there'll be somebody teeing off and we're dumping 1,000 gallons right there.
Funny. That's funny. So if you could go back to Dominic today after he graduated high school, where he's walking outside the front door to go to his first job, what would you tell him based on what you know now?
I would say don't go. I would say get in that truck. I honestly would. I just spent so many years of my life, I feel like I wouldn't say wasted, because I did learn valuable lessons, but I didn't even know this career existed out of high school. Nobody told me about it. They pushed me to go to college. And I did go to college for a few years, but I never really saw anything that I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, my family, we've been laborers. My grandparents been laborers. That's all we know. Didn't really have a clear path. You just talk to somebody, they're like, okay, well, be a lawyer, be a doctor. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I get it. I know, go to school, do this, but I never really saw that for my future. There are some people that do want to do that, and I say, go do it. We do need all that. We need doctors, lawyers, whatever you want to do, but just make sure you know what you want to do. I never knew, but if I would have known about this and the possibilities of it, I would have just started right out of high school. Even during high school, probably. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of families, that's how they are. They got their son or their daughter in high school. They're working on the weekends with them or after school, and then as soon as they graduate, they already have the experience. They're out there and then getting primed up to take over the company one day.
Not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal at all, I would say.
Dominic, thank you very much.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother.